I want to welcome everyone to this webinar on the question of will the nations of Europe, the sovereign nations of Europe, understand and act on implementing the Belt and Road Initiative in the year of 2020. Given the nature of the crisis around the pandemic that is ongoing with Corona, it is a possibility to recognize the necessity for this kind of perspective for global development. Couldn't be more appropriate, both in terms of how we will come out of this crisis and the need which has been there for an extended period to guarantee and develop these kinds of infrastructure development in all areas. The significance of cooperation around the Belt and Road implies understanding certain economic principles that are based upon actual causes rather than just the effects that are being observed and often analyzed either mathematically or statistically. That poses certain challenges for many people, but I think in the course of this webinar, we shall hopefully come closer to understanding just what that implies. These principles are scientific in nature and not based on ideologies or, and thereby they define a basis of a kind of universal knowledge for humanity as a whole. And that fits clearly together with the stated intention of China's President Xi Jinping in launching the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, which was stated clearly for a shared community for the future of mankind. So with that said, I wish to welcome all the participants today, Your Excellencies, representatives of the business community, professors and experts, as well as interested participants and friends to the webinar of the Belt and Road Institute here in Sweden. My name is Stephen Brawer. I am the Vice Chairman of the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden, the BRIX, and I will be moderating the event today. And I think we have some very important speakers and contributions to hear from in today's program. So to begin and to open our seminar, I am inviting now the Honorable Ambassador from China, His Excellency, Ambassador Congyou from China, to open our webinar and to make some introductory remarks. You're welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you. 各位使节、各位专家、各位企业家，早上好。
Your Excellencies, experts, representatives of the business community, good morning.
我们有小半年没有见面了，那么瑞典疫情还将持续一段时间，我们可能暂时不能很难以开展面对面的交流，但是我们有许多的工作要做，我们也有很多合作的事情要推动。所以“一带一路”执行小组举行今天这样的视频会，我认为非常及时，也非常重要。
Well, it's been almost half a year since we last saw each other, and we are expecting the epidemic in Sweden to last for at least another extended period. So it is preventing us from meeting with each other face to face. However, there is a lot of work to be done and a lot of cooperation to be advanced. So this meeting hosted by BRICS is very relevant and important.
我也非常愿意，非常期待听取各位大使、专家和企业家对于如何推进“一带一路”合作的意见和建议。
I also look forward to hearing the insights of Your Excellencies, experts, and representatives of the business community on responding to COVID-19 and boosting economic growth.
的确，年初这场突如其来的疫情造成了2战以来最大的全球金融危机，世界经济陷入上世纪30年代以来30年大小以来最严重的衰退。
Indeed, COVID-19 has caught the whole world by surprise at the beginning of this year. It put the world in the greatest global crisis since World War II and the worst recession since the Great Depression in the 1930s.
疫情也严重冲击中国经济，面对人民生命健康和眼前经济利益，中国毫不犹豫地选择了前者。习近平主席亲自部署、亲自指挥，那么全国上下第一时间采取了最严格、最彻底、最全面的防控措施，在2个多月的时间内，控制住了疫情传播。
COVID-19 has struck the Chinese economy hard. Facing the choice between people's health and lives and immediate economic interests, China chose the former without the least hesitation. Under the direct leadership of President Xi Jinping, the whole country promptly took the most effective, stringent, and thorough response measures and managed to contain the spread of the virus in about 2 months.
那么现在中国的我们也向各位朋友介绍，现在中国的生产生活在常态下防控下正在加速恢复，经济社会复苏势头强劲，81.2%的企业已经达到正常生产水平的80%以上。制造业企业生产经营活动预期指数比上个月上升了3.9%，达到57.9%。中国市场主体信心增强，活力在不断迸发。
Of Chinese companies resuming over 80% of production capacity. China's manufacturing PMI increased by 3.9% compared with last month, reaching 57.9%. Market entities are now more confident and vigorous.
总的看，疫情没有改变中国经济稳中向好、长期向好的基本面和高质量发展。
Overall, COVID-19 did not change the long-term positive fundamentals of the Chinese economy and its prospects of high-quality development.
那么，中国国内市场的消费需求、消费拉动力强劲。5月，中国零售业、餐饮业商务活动指数保持在55%以上，人贯街、无接触零售、直播卖货等正成为撬动新消费的支点。
Consumption is now a very strong force driving the Chinese economy. In May, business activities expectation index of retail and catering industries in China stayed above 55%. Services of virtual shopping, non-contact retail, and live stream sales are becoming new propellers of consumption.
那么，中国经济的新动能正在加速聚集。疫情发生以来，线上课堂、远程医疗、农村电商等 新业态迅猛发展、迅猛成长。
New drivers of economic growth are being created. Since COVID-19 happened in China, new business forms such as online courses, telemedicine, and rural e-commerce have been growing fast.
1至4月，我们中国的高技术制造业增加值同比增长了0.5%，3、4月增速分别反弹至8.9%和10.5%。
January to April, high-tech manufacturing by 0.9%. March and April, especially, saw its growth respectively bouncing back to 8.9% and 10.5%.
外商对中国市场的信心在增强。疫情发生以来，我们中国各地各部门围绕企业纾困、畅通供应链、产业链等精准出台了近100项政策措施。由于中国营商环境稳定，综合竞争优势强劲，市场优势和内部潜力非常大，许多跨国公司正考虑在华扩张产业链。
nearly 100 well-focused policies and measures on providing wide relief to companies and keeping the supply chains unimpeded. Thanks to a stable business environment, its outstanding comprehensive competitiveness, and the market's size and demand, many transnational companies are considering expanding supply chains in China.
那么40%的外商企业要表示要继续扩大在华投资。
Surveys show that about 40% of foreign companies are set to invest more in China in the near future.
那么疫情再次证明了人类命运休戚与共，进一步凸显了“一带一路”所体现的人类命运共同体理念的重大意义。
The pandemic once again proves that all humankind is bound together by our shared destiny, which attests to the significance of the notion of a community with a shared future for humankind embedded in BRI.
那么“一带一路”，我也向各位朋友介绍，疫情之下，“一带一路”合作表现逆势前沿。今年前4个月，中国企业在“一带一路”沿线对53个国家非金融类直接投资52.3亿美元，同比增长13.4%，比上年提升了2.3个百分点。
Well, I'd like to report to you that despite the epidemic, BRI cooperation has been extraordinary. From January to April, Chinese companies increased investment in countries participating in the Belt and Road Initiative, adding a total of $5.23 billion of new investment in 53 countries, up 13.4% year on year.
今年一季度，中国对共建“一带一路”国家贸易额逆势增长3.2%，高出外贸整体增速9.6个百分点。在欧亚地区大面积停航、断航的情况下，中欧班列1至4月开行数和发货量同比都增长24%和27%，累计运送近8000吨抗疫物资。
In the first quarter, China's trade with BRI partner countries expanded by 2.2% despite the epidemic, which is 9.6 percentage points higher than our overall trade. When flights are mostly suspended in Europe and Asia, trips conducted and goods carried by China-Europe freight trains respectively increased by 24% and 27%, transporting nearly 8,000 tons of medical supplies, making itself truly a lifeline on the Eurasian continent.
一带一路成了欧亚大陆真正名副其实的生命之路。
Now, this China-Europe freight train is truly living up to its name of a lifeline on the Eurasian continent.
那么许多重点项目稳步推进，一大批暂时停工的项目已经复工复产，为各国战役、恢复经济提供了强大的助力。
Many key BRI projects are advancing steadily, and work and production has been resumed in a large number of projects, providing powerful support for countries' fight on the pandemic and recovery of economic growth.
为了更好地应对当前疫情，我们中方认为各国要进一步加强合作，坚持多边主义。在这方面，“一带一路”共建“一带一路”大有可为。
To better respond to COVID-19, the Chinese side believes it's important to step up cooperation under BRI.
中方愿意大力推进丝绸之路、健康丝绸之路建设，各国进一步加强抗疫国际合作，建立联防联控机制，推进“一带一路”卫生合作。
Countries need to further step up international cooperation, epidemic response, set up joint COVID-19 response mechanisms, and advance BRI health cooperation.
那么，习近平主席已经宣布，中国将把研发出来的疫苗作为全球公共产品，这是中国为这个抗疫和建立全球公共卫生体系做出的郑重承诺，也是重要贡献。
Our President, Mr. Xi Jinping, has pledged that once a vaccine is developed in China, it will become an international public good. And this is a solemn pledge and commitment made by the Chinese side for the global fight against COVID-19.
各国应该进一步完善全球公共卫生体系、安全治理体系，坚定支持 WHO 在全球抗疫中发挥领导作用，特别是要加大对发展中国家，特别是非洲国家的支持，共同打造人类健康命运共同体。
We need to improve the governance system for global health security, support the leading role of WHO in global cooperation in pandemic response, increase support for developing countries, African countries in particular, and build a global community of health for all.
那么应对疫情对全球经济的影响，当前特别要维护这个国际产业链供应链的稳定。
We also especially need to work to stabilize the global industrial and supply chain.
我们认为，“一带一路”沿线国家应该巩固拓展经贸互利合作，不断提升贸易投资便利化，这个贸易投资自由化、便利化水平，推动。
We believe countries along the Belt and Road need to strengthen and expand economic and trade cooperation and improve trade and investment, liberalization and facilitation.
为了稳定产业链供应链，继续推进“一带一路”合作，中国政府已经跟韩国、德国、新加坡等周边和经贸投资合作密切的国家建立了或者正在商谈建立人员往来快速通道和货物往来绿色通道。
Well, China has signed cooperation agreements with the countries including the ROK, Germany, and Singapore in jointly opening fast entry systems for people-to-people exchanges and express passage for transportation of goods.
这是中国政府为加快这个恢复国际产业链供应链而采取的创新性举措。中方愿与更多的经贸投资合作伙伴商谈，尽快建立这样的快速通道和绿色通道。
This is a creative way for the Chinese side to resume supply chain cooperation with countries where we have close economic and trade cooperation with. And we're open to the idea of opening more of such systems with other cooperation partners.
那么，瑞典很多企业家也向我们使馆提出，希望能够尽快回到中国，或者是到中国去恢复生产经营和投资。我们愿意跟瑞典政府商谈，建立这个绿色通道和这个快捷通道问题，为两国企业为双方企业合作提供便利。
We've been approached by some Swedish companies that want to resume people-to-people exchanges with China as soon as possible, so that their business people can go back to China to resume their work and production fast. We are open to this idea, and we are open to discussing with the Swedish government to set up a similar fast entry system.
那么，疫情毫无疑问给以往的经济增长点带来冲击。在这种情况下，我们可以依靠我们应该加速培育经济发展新的增长点。
Undoubtedly, COVID-19 pandemic has taken its toll on our traditional economic growth points, and now we need to focus on developing new ones.
中方愿与沿线国家大力推动数字丝绸之路建设，运用大数据、区块链、人工智能、5G 等数字技术，助力各国防控疫情。
So to that end, we need to advance the digital Silk Road cooperation and help various countries in their epidemic response with big data, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and 5G.
我们还可以依托数字基础设施，打造智慧城市、智慧医疗、智慧交通等智能服务体系，提升消费服务水平，改善民生福利，为全球经济复兴提供更多新的动力源。
And also based on these digital infrastructures, we can build smart service systems such as smart cities, smart healthcare, and smart transportation, improving consumption services and people's lives, and supporting global economic recovery with more growth.
最后，我想向各位朋友介绍，那么疫情之前，少数主要经济体就在这个搞贸易保护主义，那么这些少数国家，那么借疫情在这个搞贸易壁垒，加剧了贸易保护主义倾向。
And also, I'd like to report to my dear friends that even before COVID-19, some few countries have been engaged in increasing trade barriers and trade protectionism. These barriers have increased, have impeded global trade.
我愿向大家通报，中方坚决反对保护主义，坚定不移致力于建设开放型世界经济。
I'd like to report to my dear friends that China stands firmly against trade protectionism and stands for open global economy.
也希望世界各国坚定维护多边贸易体制，推动贸易和投资自由化、便利化，反对单边主义、保护主义。
And I hope countries around the world will join us in upholding global multilateralism, for standing for trade and investment facilitation and liberalization, and building an open global economy.
中方将坚定不移地致力于扩大对外开放，为各国企业扩大对华投资创造创造良好的环境，还要大幅缩减外资准入负面清单。
China also stands committed to opening up wider and building a more favorable business environment for foreign investors and significantly reducing the negative list for foreign investment.
中方愿意为这个各国投资商敞开投资大门。
China stands ready to open up wider to global investors.
那么，中方前不久宣布，将把整个海南岛建成世界自由贸易港，这是中国进一步扩大对外开放的一个重大新举措。
Not long ago, China has designated Hainan Island as a global hub for free trade, which is a major measure for a new round of opening up in China.
那么，欢迎各位使节、专家和朋友有机会到海南去看一看，实地考察了解。
And experts, when you're available, I hope you can pay a visit to this beautiful island to know more about the situation there.
这个按照目前的政策，到海南去旅游的外国公民每年可以购买10万人民币的这个免税产品。
Well, according to our current policies, travelers to Hainan Island can buy 100,000 RMB worth of products without needing to pay taxes.
所以你们到海南去，比我们中国人自己到海南去要享受到更多，享受到巨大的这个福利。
So as foreigners, you are in a position to enjoy more than even the Chinese nationals in Hainan Island.
Welcome to Hainan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We are very, very happy that you were with us to present these important points. And I hope that we will be able to carry out the plan for a greater cooperation, especially between China and Europe in the coming period. And in the context of defeating this pandemic and the coronavirus, I know myself, I would be the first one to join in a visit to China. So I'm going to let in some additional people. It's possible now that I might mute the group if it seems to be all right that everyone is muting themselves, which is the best thing, because then it's possible for people to come in at the appropriate moments. But if that works, if it continues to function, then it can be that way, because it's obviously better, especially during the question and answer period, which will come later. I did want to welcome Alrik Danielsson, the CEO from SKF, one of the largest Swedish companies. We're very happy that you are with us. You might want to just greet the group.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. When I was invited by Mr. Ambassador to assist his speech and to participate in this meeting, of course, I accepted. This is an important initiative. And SKF, I tell you, SKF is heavily invested and heavily committed to global free trade, and not the least to China, the biggest economy in the world. And And, you know, we see all initiatives to try to promote global free trade and good global relations as one of the main ways of actually overcoming this crisis. And I thank the ambassador for his speech, and I will take it at heart, what he said. And you know, we from SKF, we are completely committed to actually continue to grow, both from a technological point of view, engineering point of view, and also in our investments in China, as he very well knows. And I especially welcome this possibility to, in the future, you know, also have greater involvement in China in actually, you know, direct investments and corporations like China is also doing, not the least here in Sweden. And for me, I mean, unfortunately, I will not be able to stay on for the whole meeting, but for me, this is extremely important that we all try to promote cooperation and free trade, because I, for one, think this is one of the few things that can truly get the world out of this crisis and reactivate the economy. And even though, yes, we are today, I say many of the Swedish international companies, we are part of the recovery we're seeing is actually exports that we're having to China. Because China in this way is, of course, ahead of the rest of the world in the sense of getting out of the crisis. But my opinion is also that in China, even though the government is doing a lot to mitigate and try to create new ways of new businesses and new ways of growing the economy, there's still a sort of a dampening effect in the Chinese economy too. And we see it, I tell you, not so much in these main businesses like energy, infrastructure, transport, but when we look at the smaller and mid-sized companies who are basically export driven, we see still that there's also in China quite a long way before we're back to some kind of normal situation. And this is, I think, the most worrying thing, that as long as we have to keep these social distancing, and as long as we have to be careful and people are sort of, say, afraid, we won't be able to get back to a normal situation. And I think this is extremely important that all of us, you know, companies and countries alike, join forces now to try to get out of this. And after the crisis, of course, the, transport will be a key issue, and everything that's done multilaterally and internationally to keep transport at an affordable cost, environmentally friendly, and with enough capacity, well, that's in the end the only thing that can long-term mitigate any other tendencies of arguing for not having a free and open trade relations around the world. And I think that all nations, and not the least the initiatives of the Chinese government to try to do this is very welcome. And personally, I tell you, my son lives in China. So I have my eldest son in Shanghai. He's working for KUKA. It's, as you know, a German-Chinese robot company acquired by China. And so I get my daily information about how the getting back to normal is actually happening in Shanghai, at least. And I see that, yes, in many areas, China is ahead of us in the rest of Europe, but in no way are we back to normal. And I think we need to understand that. When we listen to sometimes, you know, in the press, it may sound like, you know, here in Sweden, for instance, the stock exchange is very high, and you know, now the voices are starting to be heard that we are almost back to normal, etc. And what I see, at least, is not yet at all that kind of situation. And this makes these kind of initiatives, when we try to get together and try to open up and try to sort of diffuse any obstacles to free trade, very sought for. So with those remarks, I thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for inviting me. And unfortunately, I won't be able to stay on for the whole meeting, but this has been an interesting so far. I will try to stay on for a while listening to what you have to say, but thank you for allowing me to address you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Danielsson. We're very grateful for your participation as the Chief Executive Officer for SKF, and hopefully we will in the future be able to increase the number of large Swedish companies will participate in this program to increase cooperation between Europe and Sweden and the Belt and Road for development, not only between Sweden and China, but as a global development perspective, as you said, for transportation, excuse me, transportation and connectivity as part of a world process. So we're very grateful. I want to continue now with inviting the ambassador from Portugal, who has spoken before, been with us at a previous seminar when we were actually in a physical meeting, which was in some sense more more pleasant, but we're grateful that you could be with us, Ambassador Borges. So I give you the floor now to make your remarks to the meeting. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. First I want to say how glad I am to be able to participate in this webinar, as the name goes. It's a new modality, it seems, although it of course lacks the human factor of proximity, which is so important to human relations. And I think probably one of the advantages of this, if there is one of this situation, is how we value human contact and proximity. But anyway, well, His Excellency, the Ambassador of China, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Serbia, Vice Chairman of BRIX, business representatives and civil society representatives. First, I would like to thank the kind invitation to participate in this very timely webinar organized by the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden. It is, of course, both an honor and an opportunity for me to explain how my country looks at the international situation, at the relations between the European Union and China, and also how it views the future of our own bilateral relations between Portugal and China. Therefore, I would like to take advantage of this occasion to underline some messages that we deem key under the present circumstances. First, Portugal attributes the utmost importance to fostering and deepening multilateral cooperation, as His Excellency Ambassador Congyou already underlined. Indeed, for us, multilateral cooperation is the cornerstone of modern international relations and modern diplomacy. Secondly, we believe that respect and development of multilateral channels and mechanisms are fundamental to diffuse tensions and prevent conflicts, and to ensure international peace and security. We need to deepen our cooperation to prevent tensions from escalating, to ensure sustainable development, and to combat poverty. Thirdly, as a EU member states, development of the relations between the European and its member states with China, with full respect, of course, for national as well as regional differences and viewpoints concerning international relations. Human rights should be a standing item within our dialogue. In this connection, we look forward to the forthcoming EU-China summit at the end of this month. and expect that it will be able to deliver fruitful results and to build solid foundations for the long-term future of our relations. We expect that we can accelerate a comprehensive agreement on investments, make significant progress on a number of issues like market access and reciprocity, and also have thorough and productive discussions on global challenges such as climate change and coronavirus. Now, regarding bilateral relations between Portugal and China, I wish to avail myself of this opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude for the cooperation and friendship China has once more shown towards my country through its invaluable assistance in fighting the coronavirus pandemic. Again, I also wish to underline the support China has provided us during the crisis years. It was essential to help us overcoming the challenges and the impact of the global financial crisis and the Eurozone crisis on our economy. The role played by China will not be forgotten. I have said this before and I want to reiterate this here. A final point concerning Africa. As you know, due to our history and also to the excellent relations we enjoy with Portuguese-speaking African countries, as well as with the continent at large, Africa remains a paramount priority of our foreign policy. We pursue that priority both at the national and European level and also through multilateral organizations like the UN and its agencies, whose Secretary General is a former Portuguese Prime Minister, as you know. Thanks to its knowledge of the region and to the cooperation it has developed with Africa, we consider China an essential player and an invaluable interlocutor and partner regarding the region's future, with a view to a fully fledged and sustainable development. Therefore, we look forward to further develop our bilateral dialogue and cooperation in that regard. Again, many thanks for this kind invitation and my most sincere wishes of a fruitful and successful meeting. Taking the point made by the Chinese ambassador, His Excellency Congyou, I also want to state that we are open for tourism. And of course, we welcome friends and citizens from all over the world, including China, of course, and all business from all quarters of the world. Well, thank you very much, Stephen Brawer, for this so kind invitation. It was really a pleasure to be here, and I hope I can watch maybe I don't know if I can stay to the end of it, the seminar or the webinar, but I'll try to assist. Anyway, thank you very much again for the opportunity. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We're very grateful. I know that maybe not everyone knows, but yesterday was the National Day for Portugal. We want to congratulate you for that, and I'm very grateful that you were able to take the time to join us today, and your comments are totally in line with the objectives of the mission of the BRICS to promote cooperation and to avoid the potential dangers of conflict and divisiveness, which unfortunately do have some role in the world today. So the more that we bring together voices that stand for cooperation and cooperation in economic and the human and cultural elements, the better it will be for attaining that objective, both now and into the future. Okay, I would like to just, before I turn it over to Mr. Ambassador from Serbia, I would like to just simply emphasize that there are other ambassadors who are with us on this webinar, not necessarily speaking, but I want to welcome them. Perhaps at some point later, you will be able to make some contributions or remarks, especially during the question and answer period. They will be most welcome. So I say that without naming all of the names, because it would be a bit too much right now. But I want to thank the ambassador from Serbia, Mr. Dragan, Momcilovics, and he was initially also an ambassador from his country in China, which I learned in a meeting. I think that is a diplomat there, so I think he has additionally very important and useful knowledge to contribute to the meeting. I will also just say that although he could not be with us, the ambassador Mario Cospito from Italy wanted me to communicate his best wishes and greetings for the success of this meeting. And I'm sure there will be other chances that he will speak. So for now, thank you, Mr. Ambassador, and please give us your words. Hello?
Well, you can hear me.
Yeah,
Yes,
now I hear you.
Yeah, Your Excellency, dear Stephen, all the participants of the meeting, I would like to thank you for kind invitation, and it is really my pleasure to talk again about our experience and our relations in the Belt and Road Initiative. I would like to stress that my expose will be divided into 3 parts. First part will be dedicated to the COVID-19 pandemic and our fight. I will talk about that briefly. Then I will talk briefly about bilateral relations between Serbia and China. And at the end, I will talk briefly also about Belt and Road Initiative. First of all, I will use this opportunity to thank Chinese authorities helping us in the COVID pandemic, fighting against the COVID pandemic, because as most of the countries, you know, during the pandemic in the middle of March, we were surprised by the strong pandemic cases that opened with us. And I have to say that we are not only perplexed with the pandemic, but also we are not ready because we didn't have enough capacity. Because last pandemic, we have, I think, 30 or 40 years, and our capacities are dying because we did not match anymore with that kind of disease. And then we start fighting. And then we had, you know, two-way help from China. We are fighting, of course, of our own, our medical experts are fighting. But in one moment, Chinese send us really great help, medical help, you know, by 2 days, landed in Belgrade, you know, and we got very precious material at that time, including some respirators, ventilators, and some other medical equipment. At the end of the March, that is very important, one Chinese delegation came to Belgrade, delegation of the medical doctors, medical experts as advisors, and we really used that opportunity to see how we can better fight. And thanks to all the efforts of Serbia, helping with China and all other countries, including European Union, we succeeded in fighting against the pandemic. We have about 260 cases of dead people, you know. That is in comparison with other countries, more and less, you know, some have more or less. But we are happy that we stopped pandemic, especially in the homes of elderly people, that pandemic is not spread. In that context, I think and I appreciate the help from China and of course from European Union and other countries that we, in the first wave of pandemic, did it quite well. The second thing I would like to talk is our bilateral relations with China as a cornerstone for a Belt and Road Initiative. In the last 10 years, we have excellent bilateral relations, and those bilateral relations are parallel to our the goal of Serbia is entering the European Union, and we are now negotiating with the European Union almost 8 years. Now, very, very hard negotiations. We opened 18 chapters from 35 to adapt our economy, our law system, and all other systems to the European Union standards. We hope that at the end of this road, nobody knows when it will be, we will enter European Union. But parallel to that, and in comparison with other European countries, we are more free to cooperate with other partners like United States, like Russia, like China. And we use this opportunity to cooperate really very strongly with China. And I have to say that bilaterally, we have around 10 billion euro investments in Serbia, Chinese investments, something similar like Sweden. I think Sweden has also around 10 billion investments. Those investments are oriented towards the infrastructure, they are oriented towards the IT technologies and towards the energy sector. I have to say that Chinese took a very important step in renovating our steel mill, one of the biggest in the Western Balkans, you know, that was taken before, privatized before that by US Steel, and US Steel stayed 5 years and after that left. And then Chinese partner, He Steel or something like that, came, invest a lot of money, and now this steel mill, employing more than 5,000 people, are functioning excellently. That means that's the kind of a cooperation that Serbia like. Also, I have to say that in the infrastructure sector, Chinese are very present, Chinese companies, you know, and financing, and we are happy about that. And at the end, I will come to the Belt and Road Initiative. My country, Serbia, is highly appreciative Belt and Road Initiative, especially that it is initiative a la carte. That means that we can choose what is the most suitable projects for us, like all other countries. And we have chosen one project that is very important, and that is the rail link between Athens, coming to the north to Belgrade, and after that to Budapest. That means that this link is crucial for our economic and for human aspects. Can you imagine that we can, from Belgrade, travel to Budapest, to the north? For us, to the European Union country, now we are traveling by car about 5 hours. We can travel in 2 hours. The speedy railway that we are constructing now, it's 200 kilometers, you know, per run. And that is something really very important for us. We finish our part, first part, linking Novi Sad and Belgrade. In November will be opening ceremony, and that proves that from two very important cities in north of the Serbia, we can travel less than 30 minutes. That is really crucial for our development and other things. Well, that is briefly what I want to thank you. You know, I will stay also certain period of time on this webinar, and I'm ready to answer the questions you are ready to ask me. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. We're very grateful for your input in the discussion here, and I hope there will be a bit later the opportunity to address questions. I think that underlining the question of cooperation and elimination of poverty through development is the essential basis upon which the world can go forward, both out of the coronavirus pandemic and otherwise. And these questions are highly relevant also for development, not only in Europe, but how Europe and Asia, and specifically China, will help raise Africa and other parts of the global community in South America out of poverty. So thank you very much for your comments. I would like now to introduce Professor Michele Geraci, who is an expert economist in Chinese economics. He speaks Chinese. Perhaps he wants to say hello to Ambassador Gui. Unfortunately, I won't understand his remarks, but he is also a former Undersecretary of State at the Italian Ministry of Economic Development. He has a topic which will be entitled the BRI, First Time for Italy to Lead Europe, Criticisms and Approvals. He, of course, was a member of the government at the time that Italy, as one of the leading G7 European nations, signed a memorandum of understanding with China. The government in Italy is not the same anymore, but that initiative, I think, laid the foundation for what I would hope that the European Union can begin to realize, that China is a partner, not a competitor, as the European Union has stated in its, changed its outlook in its remarks from 2019. We would rather that it go back to a partnership. And therefore, I will open the floor now to Mr. Geraci to address us. Thank you. You have to unmute.
Thank you very much. You can hear me now. Pleasure to be here. Hello to everyone. I heard with interest the earlier remarks and the last one by the ambassador in Serbia on how the development of the high-speed rail is actually bringing good benefits and linking Serbia with Hungary. I was actually in Hungary earlier on, and we were discussing about this, and of course how and maybe in the view of accession to the EU, that's an important infrastructure project that should be set as an example. I do say hello to the ambassador. 你好，韦聪友大使，你好吗？我很高兴认识你。我听说过你是来自安徽省，我是在中国生活了10年了，就在杭州，在浙江大学上课了，所以我经常去了你的很美丽的家乡。然后呢，你肯定看到了，现在在两会中，中国政府再一次强调了推进“一带一路”，所以我们在意大利真的很开心有这个MOU 这个机会跟中国做合作。I switch back to English, okay? After initial greetings, I'm sorry I don't speak Serbian or Portuguese or Swedish for that matter. Indeed, Stephen, thank you very much. We have, and I have to say, I am particularly proud of the activity that in my government, we did during the signature of the MOU. Italy was the first G7 country to join the Belt and Road Initiative. I am proud, of course, to have pushed this within the Italian cabinet. Something that was lingering for some time, but then with my arrival, having been in China for 10 years, I felt that this was something that Europe needed to wake up to. And indeed, we got lots of criticism by the European Union, by the United States, by other members of governments, but very interestingly, no criticism from companies. No criticism from the industrial sector, of course, no criticism from the construction, railway, even agricultural company, because the way we see the Belt and Road is not just one belt, one road, but it has many, many layers, not least the one that I just mentioned, the Belt and Road of Health, which has been brought back by President Xi, and even the Belt and Road of culture, because I'm a strong believer that trade is done on top of mutual knowledge and understanding of the way of doing business culture. And I have noticed that in Europe, and specifically in my country, in Italy, amongst the general public, the knowledge of China is very close to zero, and that non-zero number is also affected by bias, and it is not therefore accurate. So one of the main goals for me to push Italy into joining the Belt and Road is indeed, of course, to cooperate on infrastructure that made all companies happy, but also to get closer bridge on the helping Italian to understand what's going on in China and make them aware of the magnitude of the change, development that you know, if you don't see it, you cannot understand it, because people don't really have the consciousness of grasping what is going on in China. And I was very lucky to have seen in 10 years revolutionary changes, from using cash to almost having nowhere to use cash now. The internet, the high-speed rail. When I was in China, there was only Beijing-Tianjin speed railway, 150 kilometers. Now we are looking at 30,000. And so I think we should look at China as an example and see what we can learn. I do this, I use the example of, you know, when we go to a Chinese restaurant, you have a table with revolving food, and you don't have to eat everything. You choose what you like. Adapt. First of all, you need to look at everything. So you need to study everything, and then you choose what is the piece that you think is useful and can be implemented in your own country. But I tell you, even studying about China, even looking at the menu already is a topic that upsets some people, because they start from the bias that there is nothing that can possibly be learned. And of course, as an academic and researcher, this is an approach that I totally condemn. We need to learn, and of course, we are under no obligation to do anything. The criticism on the Belt and Road, which came interestingly from the European Union at the time by President Jean-Claude Juncker. And it's very, I always like to quote, a few days later, Luxembourg, the country where Juncker is from, also signed the MOU on China. And so it is very funny how the same individual takes a stance with one hat as a European, and then his surely friend, Prime Minister of Luxembourg at the time, did sign the MOU. So his own country that you know, we also know is not, it has some anomalies in the European Union, did join the Belt and Road, and so did the Switzerland after that, which is not an EU member, but it's a big and important country. And I have to say, why do I say this? Because the criticism about China seems to be almost an ex-ante criticism. So when we signed the MOU, the criticism was first, oh, you are the first EU member to sign it, which was not true, because many of other European countries, 13 at the time, had already signed it. And then the criticism raised to another level, said, yes, but you are the first founding member of the EU. And we say, yes, we are. And then Luxembourg signed it. And they say, ah, but you are the first G7 country to sign it. Now, it seems that even the G7 is completely meaningless. And there is, so people were trying in a way to find, to define a set within which Italy would stand out by narrowing and narrowing the definition, so that the sentence Italy was the first to break ranks could be satisfied by narrowing more and more this range. Now, I actually think that Italy was the first country to sign it, but this is, and maybe unusually for our country, a leading role in Europe. Italy has always led, maybe followed other countries. We have an issue with the European Union, and so we tend to follow and be recipients of activity rather than be proponents. And I think this was new, and that's why I think it was also something to be proud of, that maybe for the first time Italy was actually trying to play an active role in telling the rest of our European friends that we need to engage with China. If we are the first country to do it, so be it. Every country is at one point in its history first at doing something, and that in itself is not a cause for criticism. Even when we were negotiating the Belt and Road, I think we were successfully bringing China to the language that is even very dear to our Western values. We brought China into agreeing to reference to climate change, openness, fair, equal playing fields. Even the transnational network is in line with the EU directives. And in fact, when the MOU on the Belt and Road was made public, most of the criticism dissipated because people did realize that they were fearing God knows what would be inside an MOU, but when people read it, the criticism was subdued. Even the very sensitive issue of 5G that also raised criticism. China, Italy with this MOU will open up to 5G and so on, which anyway, I think Italy should do 5G regardless of the supplier. But then it was the European Union joint declaration with China that did have the wording, Europe and China should cooperate on 5G. And my MOU didn't have it. So this is to give you a little bit of color on how this negotiation did go. And the criticism that was a little bit not on the merit, but just to cure on just not being willing and happy to engage with China. Even, I'll tell you another issue. When we were negotiating the Belt and Road, we did already suggest to the Chinese counterparts to not just do Belt and Road, but to add 3 other layers. The other one was a cooperation on the airline industry, because to stimulate travel, tourism, and again, at the basis of travel and exchanges, there is this is what supports trade. Then we're even looking at the 4th line, which is the space cooperation, space exploration, high technology cooperation. The 5th one was cooperation on the culture. And already these additionally 3 lines of the Belt and Road were very well accepted by Chinese government when we're discussing with the NDRC and the Ministry of Commerce. And indeed, when President Xi came to Rome, we did talk about this, and he was, of course, very happy to engage in these additional layers. And now, with the coronavirus, we also discover a 6th level, the health and road of health. And again, we were happy to help Wuhan at the beginning of the crisis. We were happy when the Chinese from the Red Cross came to Milan to give us a helping hand. Indeed, one of the first remarks by the Vice President of the Red Cross in Milan, looking at the people still on the streets, taking the metro as if nothing happened, he did say in a very colorful language, what are you guys thinking? You know, why are you not in a lockdown yet? And again, it was the presence of the Chinese Red Cross and a little bit of my input to remind the local governor in Milan that we really needed to do something. And without seeing, people don't do it. And this is, I think, is the value that people like us who engage in the Belt and Road, have some experience in China, of course, our friends ambassadors here, we have a duty to inform our society of what is happening in all the possible means, webinars like this, the media, research, and so on, because otherwise people do not develop in Europe, European people do not develop the consciousness of the opportunity, and they focus only on the risk, because we need to be fair, the media do not report good news. They only report bad news. That's kind of, in a way, almost acceptable. But this influences people's perception of China, China roles, China geopolitical aspirations. Very few people really separate. And when people put the risk as the main concern, they do not focus on the opportunities. And, you know, I'm a professor of finance. There are 2 types of mistakes in finance. You invest in bad projects, and you do not invest in good projects. And the second type of mistake is sometimes the most serious ones. It's like selling the shares too soon when they keep on going up. And this is exactly what I fear is happening between Europe and China. We focus too much on the risks, which are there, and we need, of course, to be aware of them. We need to tell our companies, but we also need to give them the second side of the equation, the opportunities. And the opportunities are not well understood, and that's why I'm completely against the European Union paper that makes China a systemic rival. There is it's politically, not a good idea. And China is a competitor in many sectors. Is a competitor to my country, to Italy, to Germany in manufacturing. Is advancing in artificial intelligence, mobile telephony. Is a competitor with the US on technology, mobile. We know that. But the trick here is to find a layer where instead of competing with each other, we can actually be suppliers and users of each other's services. And I give you, and I stop here, one final example. We want to push for cooperation between Italian companies and China in the development of Africa. Africa for Italy is a big problem, is a problem of migrants, is a problem of society, is an ethical problem. We have seen poverty in Africa really not decreasing for many decades, and only in the last 20 years the numbers seems to be improving. In coincidence with Chinese stronger investment in China, in Africa, which is now about $400 billion of Chinese debt and equity investment in Africa. Very different from the 100 billion figures that people quote. So this is what we want to do. We don't want to compete. We want to have our Italian construction company do maybe a joint bid, I don't know, with the CCCC to do some infrastructure development. We have strength in agriculture, machinery. China has experience in migration from rural to urban. So the model is now being reduplicated in Ethiopia, for example. China has a big example in infrastructure development, and the ambassador from Serbia can tell us more about this. So these are the things that we need. And in Italy, 7 hours, and it's the same distance from my hometown in Palermo in Sicily to Berlin. In 7 hours, I don't even get to Naples. So we need to decide what kind of future we want. I stop here and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Geraci. That was very interesting and a very good contribution. I would just say that one of the underlying ideas that you mentioned in the nature of cultural cooperation, the history of your country is so rich in Renaissance culture, in defining a direction which was based on an image of mankind that was a positive image, not one of suspicion, but one of how people can work together because we have a common mission and objective in life. And that is also very much part of China's culture with the Confucius culture, which is additionally a very rich philosophical culture that defines a basis for why we can work together, rather than having these other ideas of divisiveness or suspicion, which are altogether often heard too much. So I think hopefully coming out of this, we will raise our voices as those who stand for cooperation, not only today, but into the future, to bring Sweden into this alignment. It is in the interests of Sweden, it is in the interests of other European countries, and I think we can make a difference if we continue in that. So thank you very much. I do not see at this moment the next speaker, the Honorable Mr. Rune Rafaelsson. Is he with us?
Mhm.
The mayor of Kirkenes was supposed to be speaking. I don't know if I don't see him at the moment. That's a bit disappointing. I don't know if there was a problem in terms of his joining us, but
I'm okay. I'm fine.
oh, you're there.
Yep.
Okay, great. I didn't see you. Now I see you, and you're very welcome. And we're very excited to hear your contribution on how to approach this question of development in the very northern part of Europe. Kirkenes, of course, for those who don't know, is the absolute northernmost city in Norway. I think about 10,000 people, but they have a potentially very strategic point in developing infrastructure between not only Norway, but between China and Russia as well. So, Mr. Mayor, please give us some interesting and informative words.
Thank you very much for having me. And it's very interesting to come after Michel Geraci, because the distance from Kirkenes to Stockholm is longer than from Stockholm to Rome. So I'm living at 70 degrees north, in the high north. And I have been working with Russia for more than 40 years. And also the last 10 years I've been working with China to promote Arctic cooperation, and especially the Barents cooperation. I was heading the Norwegian Barents Secretariat for 12 years as a Secretary General. So all my work professionally before I became a mayor, elected in 2015 and re-elected last year, has to do with international cooperation on a regional level. So I look upon China as a neighbor country to Norway. It's only one small country between us. It's Russia. So we have had a long tradition with them, and also my last trip to China was in January this year, because we are also having a friendly cooperation relation with Harbin, as you know, a small winter city in the north of China with 12 million people, and so that's very normal for a small town like Kirkenes. But I will say that when I'm sitting here in Kirkenes, this is the central periphery of Europe. The shortest way between Asia and to Europe goes through the Northern Sea route. And when Yiping launched the Belt and Roads Initiative, and I read this white paper about the Chinese Arctic policy, it was really interesting, because I think that together with Russia and EU, we should promote this trade route. It will nearly half the transport from to Europe if you use the Suez Channel or if you use this Northern Sea route. And the Northern Sea route is very active today. And China is a very active investor in the Arctic of Russia, in Yamal with LNG. And we also see a very strong connection now also with the big Chinese ships owners, this COSCO. I had a meeting with COSCO in Beijing in January, and this is very interesting. And I also had a meeting with the Chinese Polar Institute. So the Arctic has a strong possibility to become one of the Belt and Road Initiative, a kind of Arctic Silk Road. But this is of course very dependent on European and Western relation with China. And for me, who has worked with the cooperation with Russia more or less professionally for 40 years, and especially after Soviet Union became Russia in December '91 and made the so-called Kirkenes Declaration here with the father of the present NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg, Thorvald Stoltenberg. We initiated this in '93. It has been a tremendous cooperation up here until, of course, what happened in March in 2014 in Crimea. So we are very sensitive for political changes up here. But I think that, as was said very good from Michel Geraci, that the alternative for cooperation is very bad. So I think that Europe and also that Norway should play an active role together with Russia and China and South Korea was building boats and Japan to develop the Northern Sea route. And that's bringing me also to the cooperation that we are doing with Finland. As you know, Kirkenes is just 5 kilometers from Russian border. We have a border crossing here at Borges, and we also are only 30 kilometers from the Finnish border. So we are working very closely with this initiative from Finland to build a railroad from Kirkenes to Rovaniemi, and then also this tunnel project with Helsinki, Tallinn, and we have a project called Arctic Railroad. And at the same time, we are working with a Russian company to have a high-speed cable through the Northern Sea route from Japan to the Arctic, to Kirkenes. So for me, as a mayor in this small town, but for us here up in the Arctic, it's extremely important to develop this cooperation through the Northern Sea route and the Arctic Silk Road. And I can also tell you that Chinese ships owners companies are present here in Kirkenes. They have Kirkenes as a base for doing seismic shooting in the Barents Sea and in the Kara Sea. So I will work very hard as a politician for developing this cooperation with China, and especially together with Russia and EU to make the Northern Sea route the preferable transporting road for Asia and Europe connection. So this is my approach from the high north. And we also have made also strong relation with this company in Finland who are working with the tunnel with Peter Westerbacka. So this is, and we have lots of visitors from China here, company who are looking at also taking part in this harbor development. We have also a mining industry here, so we are also very active in that field. So for me, taking part in this is very interesting to listen to the perspective from mayor of this humble place up in the north. It's extremely important that the international cooperation continue, especially with China, to develop this Arctic Silk Road and also using the Northern Sea. You must remember that Kirkenes is the first Western harbor you're coming to when you are leaving the Northern Sea route from Russia. So this is my perspective, and it has been very interesting to work closely with the Chinese embassy in Oslo, but also I have done several trips to China, and I will continue to do that as soon as this corona pandemic is over. So this is my intervention, so I look forward to listen to it, but I also have to leave around 11 because I'm also a member of the Labour Party, and the Labour Party are now developing a new Arctic policy, and today we are going to discuss Arctic infrastructure, and of course the Northern Sea route is very important for us. So thank you for having me, Mr. Brawer.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Mr. Mayor. I just wish to say that I am an American Swede. I was not born in Sweden. I was born in the United States. But in light of that, my country was just a small community in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which at a certain point in human history laid the foundation for the development of what is now become the United States. The northern route, although it's small, has perhaps the greatest potential or one of the greatest potentials for resource development, obviously including not only Norway, but two of the largest countries, Russia and China. And I'm very happy that we do have a diplomat from the Russian embassy who is with us today. And maybe at a certain point he can speak. We also have the ambassador from White Russia, who is also with us, Mr. Mironchik. So we will continue to voice the foundation for economic cooperation. That is the foundation for political cooperation, not the other way around. If we establish a basis for economic development and join hands, that is the way that conflict will be avoided. So thank you for your remarks, and I hope that the projects there will continue to expand in joining Norway to Russia and to China, and we're very grateful you were with us. I would now like to introduce the next speaker, Ms. Wang Tiangshu, who is the Chief Executive Officer of CRTG Engineering, Sweden. It is a large engineering company for tunneling that is actually right now involved in building the tunnel to a part of Stockholm called Nacka. And they're doing great work, which highlights the type of cooperation between Chinese companies and Swedish companies, which should not only continue, but should hopefully expand. Her topic, Ms. Wang, will be tunneling to connect the world. So if you are here, I would like you to please take the microphone and speak to us.
Yes, it's my honor. But first, Stefan, I want to share my screen. Is it possible you able?
Yeah, I want
Thank you so much.
To see if I can. Where is the? Ah. The technical sides of this are a little bit unknown to me, but I'm trying to find the, if there's somebody who can help to
you have to find the speaker and then click on allowing to share.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. It says mute chat. I'm looking to find where the allow to record. No, that doesn't do it either. I'm sorry for this.
You could just share.
Yeah, but it should be more accessible.
Steve,
yeah.
Somebody just wrote that the speaker should
be able to do by clicking share screen.
Yeah.
First you do the green button.
Yeah.
And then I try.
No.
Yes, it's almost there.
But I still cannot share.
No, I don't know why it's.
Okay.
You are screen sharing, it says, but.
Because the speaker is disabled to share, so you have to figure out.
Why you are not able, it says you are. Let me see if.
I will request the remote control. So you will be answer my.
Okay.
Oh no, not possible. I only can remote to your screen. It's not work. Sorry.
Yeah, it's. It's a bit of a disappointment to have this problem here. I'm very sorry. Why it's not functioning the way.
Okay, maybe I just give a short presentation because I prepare a really good video for.
I understand that, and that's why I'm
okay.
Not pleased with the way that it's.
Okay. First, I really appreciate the host and all distinguished guests that this topic is one by one wrote, get us together in this seminar. And we, as a China rail tunneling construction contractor, and we built the tunnel to link the world, connection, a railway group limited, which enterprise, and the China Railway Group Limited is providing services in more than 90 countries and regions around the world, and over 15 group companies and with 0.2 million employees. So we are really a professional and constructor enterprise. And also our holding companies focus not only for the engineering construction, and also the real estate financing, investment, survey design, resources and mineral products, industry design and manufacturing, and most important, they focus on the scientific and technical research. And now we are come to our company, which is China Railway Tunnel Group. It is really the China's first leading engineering services supplier, specialized in the field of tunnels and underground works, and a world well-known underground work contractor, which is provided the diverse underground space solution and supply complete chain services, all covering design, construction, scientific research, and equipment manufacturing. We are not only the China first-rank underground work contractor, we're also the first-rank tunnel boring machine tunneling contractor. And the most important figure that for the past several years, we already finished more than 5,000 kilometers of tunnel works. It's really a remarkable record around the world. And also, if you have been to China, if you have been to take the high-speed railway or the normal railway, you will experience a lot of tunnels work. Because you were going through tunnel, it's really dark, and then we will go out of tunnel, it's suddenly bright. So this is what we are doing. And if you could experience the tunnel, I could give you another figure. If one single tunnel more than 30 kilometers longer, one side, is 100% produced by our company. If one single tunnel is longer than 20 kilometers set, it will be 80% produced by our company. So we have really the technical solution and the innovation in this area. And now, since this global, how to say, we are going to the global now, to the overseas marketing. So we going from a different country, but we mainly focus in the tunnel industry. We're going to the Israel, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Malaysia, Singapore, Uzbekistan, and also the South American. And since from 2017, we going to Sweden. We choose this is our first step to the European marketing, because we noticed Sweden is really open marketing, and also welcome the new technology, the innovation, and the sustainable solution. So this is why we're landing here.
Ms. Wang, can you try now to see? I changed the sharing so that you should be able to.
Yeah, now I can share.
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay, very good.
Good. Now I come to the point that will be a very interesting video. So it's good. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see now.
Good.
Let's try to go to the full screen mode, like slideshow mode.
Okay. Like this way?
Yes.
It's good?
Very good.
Okay. Yes, now I'm talking about the tunneling to link the belt and road, which is I want to show you several cases about us we are doing around the world. This is the first one is we are doing the professional tunnel solution in Israel, Tel Aviv light rail. And we built 5.5 kilometers tunnel boring machine tunnels and 6 underground station. It's really a good tunneling solution because that we bring our own tunnel boring machine we design them and we manufacture them and we use the machine and later on we maintenance our machine. So it's like the whole services, the solution, the chain. It's a very successful example that what we are doing in Israel, and our client is really satisfied about how we build the most important tunnel in the city. And the second example that what we are doing, the technology innovation in Singapore. I think if you know about the tunnel, most of the tunnel boring machine, the normal company use is like a round shape, but we innovation of this rectangular shape, which is could very innovation the tunneling in a complex environmental. And during we win this project, our client is compared with our company with another Japanese company, and then they choose us because our machine could achieve 30% improved productivity. And this confirmed by our client in the end. And we could provide a much more simpler and safer construction method. And there's another example that what we built a brilliant pier in the Belt and Road, which is Kamchik tunnel in Uzbekistan. For this project, we arranged Chinese and Uzbekistan workers spent 900 days to build this Kamchik tunnel, overcoming some of the world's most difficult geological and engineering problems. And this is the longest tunnel in Middle Asia, has 19.2 kilometer length, which used the integrated mechanization, drilling and blasting method to complete 47.3 kilometer tunneling excavation. When we finish this project, two presidents between China and Uzbekistan, they are launching the opening ceremony. So it's a really huge event in the Belt and Road that we could deliver an excellent job and could provide a really good services for the Uzbekistan people and the citizens. Here's the video I want to share, which is very interesting. Can you hear the sound?
Papa, когда мы пойдем в Анжела?
Yes, we hear. It's fine.
Thank you.
Меня зовут Паланда Кубанов. Я живу в городе Ташкента, столице Узбекистана. У меня 2 дочери. Старший Зарине 7 лет, младший Мехрангиз 3 годика. Я хочу их забрать в мой родной город Андижан, который находится в Ферганской долине.
Папа, когда ты был как я маленький, твой семья, твой город где был?
Моя семья была в Андижане, в Ферганской долине. Там очень красивый, там высокие горы, чистый воздух, вкусные фрукты, очень много богатства. Поэтому Ферганская долина называют сокровищницей Центральной Азии.
Папа, когда мы пойдем в Анжела?
Мы поедем скоро в Андижан. Раньше мы ездили вот так, через Таджикистан.
Ташкент и Анжелан в нашем стороне, почему вы ехали через Таджикистан?
Ну, наша страна хотела решить этот вопрос, хотела построить здесь туннель, но здесь очень много были геологические проблемы, связанные в горах. Институт, предложенный председателем КНР Си Цзиньпином, помог решить этот вопрос. Китайские друзья нам построили тоннель через перевал Камчик. Теперь нам, возвращаясь домой в Андижан, в Ферганской долине, нет необходимости ехать через соседние страны. чтобы ехать там нельзя, мне ушли все, потому что я ехал через Таджикистан. Там 2 месяца проверяли, очень много времени уходило. Сейчас я еду, а между через перевал Капчик. Уходит только 6 часов.
Папа, мы вместе поедем в Амстердам.
Да, вместе поедем в Амстердам.
Yeah, from this video, we could see that what we are doing is really change normal people life in the reality. And also, I have a really good experience. It's a really a good one that when I try to take flight in Finland airport, and I meet this one gentleman who's handling all these tickets things. And when he checked my passport, he noticed I have a lot of the visa. I have been to Uzbekistan, and then he asked me what we are doing in Uzbekistan. So I explained him we are built this tunnel because I work here for 3 years, and then he told me he come from Uzbekistan, and now he's become the Finnish people, but he know this tunnel, and he told me that his friend, a lot of friends has experienced this train and experienced the tunnel. They are so exciting because before they only could take the road, and it's very dangerous to going through the mountain, and a lot of accident happen, a lot of people killed by accident. So he said that what you are doing, what your company doing is really good to change normal people life. So that is when I heard about this, what he's talking, I feel really proud about what we are doing, because now we are not experienced the Belt and Road. We are not only take mission, we also could change normal people's daily life. It make us feel so good. And here, when we come to Sweden, that we built this Swedish company from zero, we try or the Swedish way to build this company. We built a strategic engineering AB company that, according to our experience and technology before, we could provide a safety, healthy, and clean and well-protected work environment as we are working now in Nacka, what we are doing the Stockholm Metro extension. And also we protect the safety and healthy of all stakeholders and promote sustainability of the environmental and the community where we operate. We also commit to deliver products and process and services that strive to fulfill the expectation of our customer and the society and the environment. And this is what we are doing now in Stockholm. That is really not a really big project, but a small 3 access tunnel in Nacka area. And for this purpose of execution of this project, as well the professional nature of drilling and blasting tunneling works, and we arrange 15 skilled professional management from local, and also 5 very technical engineers from China, and around 50 labor force will engage from EU marketing. So it will be working like an international team. They come from different countries, but they all certified to work together closely to provide a better solution tunnel to the Swedish public and the citizen. This is what we are doing now. And also, I noticed that we are living in one of those rare moments in history when the political and economic axis of the world is shifting. In the past hundreds of years, it's shifting to the Western country, but recently years, it's a little bit shifting to the Eastern countries. The Eastern country, not only China, also including India, Japan, and also Korean. But we are noticed that this shifting is not completely. It's like keep very good harmony and balanced situation now, what we are living now, that both Western and Eastern are all important to build a better world. even that our company is pioneer in this Belt and Road, but what we are doing is try to build a bridge, a tunnel, a link to Western and Eastern. We want to share our technology and our experience in the tunnel industry and to provide a better solution, a good job and a better project to Western country as well. So this is why we notice that what we are doing could benefit for the whole human being and the whole citizen around the world. This is why we try our hard and we doing very good job, very hard job, try to build an excellent tunnel to the public, to the society. And that's all I want to share today, and appreciate for Stephen could give me this chance to introduce our company and introduce our business, and also share what we practical in the Belt Road, and later on we will continue to contribute a lot in this industry. Appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a very interesting, and that's the idea of connecting people and making their lives better. That's what the nature of economic cooperation is all about. And we're going to continue to make that known as today and into the future, to bring together more people, more companies, and more people who will understand the purpose of it. The next speaker will, excuse me, be Mr. Nakashima Yoshi, who is the head of the chief executive officer of a Swedish company called Plantamed. And he will make a presentation on the role of his company in working together, especially between Sweden and China. So I will give just admitting a couple of people here, but you can. I have opened it for sharing, so you are welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
And can you see the PPT?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Stephen. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Yoichi Nagashima, CEO of Plantamed AB in Sweden. And we are a small company with about 15 employees. So first of all, I would like to thank BRIX to give me the opportunity to share our experience in benefiting from Belt and Road Initiative and the recent expansion of our company that we enjoyed in China market. And I would like to first give a brief introduction of our company and what we do and where we are. And next I will introduce a company in China called BioAsia and the synergy. And we had a M&A agreement 2 years ago. So I will introduce the synergy and objective of this agreement under the momentum of Belt and Road Initiative. Finally, I would like to present the recent achievement that Plantamed had in expanding the Chinese market, and I will encourage this middle and small Swedish company like us will take the express train of BRI. And first about our company, we are, as I said, we are a small company with about 15 employees. We are the west of Sweden, and west of Stockholm, and about 1.5 hour drive to Stockholm. And what we do is we design and develop and manufacturing, of course, also sell the food supplements and food supplement and then nature medicines, and combines the certification of the modern medicine with the organic quality of nature healthcare. And next, about the company in China. And the company in China we are working with is called BioAsia. It's in Zhejiang province, and it's about 1 hour drive to Shanghai and 40 minutes to Hongqiao Airport. So what they do is they also make research and artificial cultivating and manufacturing and sell the cordyceps related food supplement and healthcare products. Okay, the vision of this company, BioAsia, is using the cutting edge biotechnology to let the ordinary people to enjoy the affordable Chinese medicine, which traditionally is very, very expensive. So that most of the population can afford to take those the cordyceps cicada. So maybe many of you don't know what is cordyceps cicada. So I would like to spend a little time to explain what it is. In a non-scientific words to describe it, cordyceps cicada is a mushroom grows on a cicada. Okay, you see the pictures on the right. So 2,000 years ago, the earliest extant pharmacy book in China, it's called Sun Nong Herb Classic, which recorded this cicada flower as a white flower. It is very good for digestion, for anti-fatigue and anti-aging. So it is in this book, it reported where and when and how to find it. So in 1,500 years ago, in a book for preparing the drugs, it is described in great detail how to prepare the cicada flower as a mystery medicine. But this nature cordyceps cicada has some difficulties to make it popular for the majority people. First of all, there are hundreds types of cicada, but only 6 of them can actually form cicada flower. Second, it takes many years to grow cicada flower, and the environment is very harsh. It's need to be in bamboo, about 3,000 height bamboo area. And also the wild cicada flower is very difficult to preserve. Its production is in the June, it's a raining season like now, but you have to dry it very soon. Otherwise it will get molded and can be a poison. So that makes the natural cordyceps very rare and too expensive for the ordinary people. It's the traditional natural cordyceps is for very rich people such as royal family. So the core biotechnology contribution of BioAsia is they find out the gene sequence of the cicada flowers. With this gene sequence or the gene map, the large-scale artificial cultivation become possible. So by controlling temperature, controlling the humidity, controlling the light, they can produce the cordyceps, artificial cordyceps, as good as 99.9% same as the nature contribution, but with consistent quality and without environment pollution like heavy metal, and most importantly, it makes it cheap. It's so the ordinary people can enjoy this mystery medicine. Okay, and 2 years ago, and BioAsia and PlantMate had joined together at the M&A PlantMate M&A project. So the objective or the synergy of two companies having M&A under the momentum of BRI. For it's simple for PlantMate, and we are a small company. We want to expand.
Well, Mr. Nagashima. Mr.
Yeah,
Nagashima.
we don't hear you. I'm trying to get him to unmute.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, now
Can you hear me now?
now.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the first joint product developed between PlantMate and BioAsia is Silveira. It's a cicada, and our founder, PlantMate founder, make this name from cicada. It sounds better, and Silveira. So it's from cicada, right? So now, after 2 years, the Silveira has become the far best hit product in PlantMate 40 years history. It is selling in many stores, health stores in Sweden, and we also have took us about 2 months to get the sales permission from German, which would take, I think, if BioAsia want to apply the sales application in German for such a product, it would take 5 years, maybe 10 years. But we applied the sales permission from Sweden as a Swedish company, took us 2 months. Okay, the lastly, I would like to explain what PlantMate do with we're taking the express train of BRI, what we do and how we expand in China market. And we set up PlantMate China in Shanghai with a fancy in a fancy building, 6th floor of a fancy building. We have a reception, the meeting room for the business discussion. And we applied import certification for vitamin, mineral product series. Those we can usually get those import certification or import permission within 6 or 10 months. And for those functional food supplement, it took 2 years, maybe 3 years to get import certification. So it's too long. Then we opened a web shop in Jingdong. It's one of the most representative e-commerce platform in China. Is the volume, business volume is similar to Amazon. So we put all our food supplements on this e-commerce platform to selling our product without import permission. And we attend 2018, 2019, continuously the International Import Expo in Shanghai. Again, we showed our product. The customer is very interested, and I will assure you that the Made in Sweden, the brand of Made in Sweden is very good in China. And actually, this is the official newspaper, Renmin Ribao. Official newspaper had an article about our company. The picture is the agreement we signed during the expo. It is $10 million US agreement for a 15 employee company. This is far biggest agreement that we had in 40 years. So I think the recent 2 years, our revenue increase is more than 40% in this pandemic area. Of course, the business of a company also is damaged, but still we can keep profitable during the pandemic area. I think it's very much due to the expansion of China market that our company did. So finally, I would like to show a video of our company, and but before that, I would show a video about our company and our founder, his mission. But before I close, I would like to conclude my presentation as we are a small company, and we really enjoyed and benefit from the Road and Belt Initiative. For those mid and small company like us, if business expansion is one of the major objective of your company, I encourage you to take the express train of BRI. Okay, thank you. So next I show the videos about a company. I hope you like it.
I have always been fascinated with nature. As a young medical student, I wanted to uncover all of nature's secrets in order to find new cures unknown to man. I founded Plantamed back in 1979. I wanted to produce natural medicine that could help benefit the body's own natural regeneration processes. With a GMP certificate and a natural doctor's degree, I felt confident introducing Plantamed to the public. Over the years, I have watched this company grow, and it has continued to exceed my expectations. With support from BioAsia, Plantamed's products are now available on the global market. We are now introducing our joint venture product, Sicaria. Sicaria comes from the mushroom Cicada cordyceps, developed by BioAsia using grain as the main resource. In traditional Chinese medicine, Cicada cordyceps has a long documented history of use. Cordyceps improves the immune system, increases the body's own energy production, and reduces fatigue. We imported it from BioAsia's own plantations in China and developed it at Plantamed in Sweden, without chemicals or additives. With my experience and with the help of BioAsia, we want to continue producing products that will benefit others based entirely on natural resources. We need to harness nature to improve our well-being.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And by the way, I would like to explain the Sicaria products. We donate many of those to the hospital, to the nurse and the doctors in China. This is very good for improve the immune system. So if you are interested, you can contact me, and my mission is selling Silveira. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd like to jump in for a second, please.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador.
刚才先生总裁先生介绍的顺风下早，在中国不是一般的消费者能够消费得起的，因为它是高营养、高保健的药品。
Well, I'd like to reply a little bit to what was said by Mr. CEO. That is, cordyceps in the Chinese market usually were not reserved for just average people in the street, because they are quite expensive, as they are very high in nutrition and very useful for boosting health.
我在北京工作的时候，我买过2次，100克就要300多美元。
Well, I bought 100 grams of cordyceps when I was working in Beijing, and for as a small amount as this, it cost me $300 US.
但是它在中国几乎是人人都祈求的这个高级消费品。
Well, but in China, everyone wants it because it's a very high-end product.
很高兴听到您这个公司研发出这样的顺春夏草新产品。
I'm very glad to hear that now this new product is available, made by your company and BioAsia.
我会向我的管员和国内的朋友介绍。首先，我今天就要想办法上网购你的产品。
I will make sure to introduce it to my colleagues and my friends back at home. But first thing for me to do today is to.
Okay, thank you.
非常感谢你的介绍。
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stefan, I think you are muting.
Yeah, Mr. Nagashima, can you stop sharing? Because your screen is still on the, you have to end sharing. You are still sharing your screen. Okay. Steve, you are muted.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Nakashima, and thank you, Mr. Ambassador. It's a very important contribution that we have companies who are working for the benefit of making people stronger, especially in Corona time, when immunity and an ability to defend humanity against these viruses, it's an important contribution. The next speaker, my colleague, Mr. Hussein Askari, is a board member of the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden. The title of his remarks will be on recovering from COVID-19 economically and the lessons from China post-2018 crisis strategy. This will have, I think, some important points that will hopefully provide a good topic for the Q&A in terms of what I was referencing in the beginning as what type of scientific principles in economic cooperation do we need to unite countries and connect people? So I will leave the word now to Mr. Asghari.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be on this panel. I'm going to discuss a few things, as Steve said, the matters of principle, because it's very fascinating that comparing what we are hearing and discussing in this meeting today with what is in the media and what some politicians in the United States and Europe say about China, the Belt and Road, and relations between East and West, you can see that we are living in two completely different worlds. The reason that people have a misguided view of their own, of others, like in the case of people in Europe and the United States against China, is that they actually don't really understand the best part of their own culture. And if every one of us dig deeper into their own history, and if we look at the best parts, the best times of our nation's development, our Renaissance, as Mr. Geraci was saying, you know, the Chinese Renaissance or the Italian Renaissance, you will find that we are actually very, very similar. We are all human, you know, at the end. Although we have different cultures, we have different political systems, but there are certain universal principles which has been practiced by all nations at the best times of their history. And therefore, it's very important, which I'm going to discuss here, is a bit of history, both recent history, but also a bit more remote history, to learn the lessons, because if we don't the lessons of past crises, we will have big problems. Dealing with the post-corona world, some people are discussing, or politicians talking about going back to the normal. Now, I don't really recommend to go back to normal, because if you really want to look at what was going on in the financial and banking system in the West since September 2019, before the corona outbreak, we will see that we were heading into a new crash, a new collapse of the financial and banking system in the transatlantic area. On the other side, the normal was that we had actually more than 2 billion people under the line of poverty. We had 600 million people in Africa who lack electricity and clean water. We had millions of people dying of malaria and other disease and polluted water. So that's not really the normal we want to go back to. We want to go to set a new normal. And I think the Belt and Road Initiative and the lessons we learned from dealing with the previous crisis and this crisis can help us find the principles upon which we can find this new normal and establish international cooperation and peace among nations. So I'm gonna, I hope you'll bear with me. I'm going to discuss three topics. First is the lessons which we have to learn from the 2008 crisis, the financial crisis. Then we have to discuss the economic principles upon which a new normal can be established. And also going back to the history of both China and the United States to figure out where the common elements, the common principles, and of course that applies to Europe too, where we can start discussing the new normal. Now, the global financial crisis in 2008 has similar features of the coronavirus, the corona pandemic in terms of the economic impact, although it's not exactly the same. But we had almost a sudden heartbreak in the international financial system, which had enormous economic repercussions around the globe. Now, this crisis, unlike the pandemic, was not something which was unforeseeable. This is something which was already forecast by the American economist Lyndon LaRouche, with whom I worked for around 20 years until last year when he died in February. Already in the 1990s, he pointed at a certain discrepancy in the transatlantic system. That is that we moved, at least since the 70s, the end of the Bretton Woods system, as we see in the diagram here, the focus shifted more and more towards more financial speculation. We can see in the red curve going upwards since the beginning of the 70s, an upward increase in the financial instruments traded in the mostly Western financial markets. And that was an enormous increase. And then following that, we had a monetary increase that central banks and governments were pumping money, and even individuals and like for pension funds were increasingly investing their money into the financial markets because it was promising big profit, as opposed to previously that these financial resources were used in the blue curve, which is going downward, which is the investments in the physical real economic, like investments in infrastructure, education, healthcare. So we were moving large amounts of financial resources and credit into financial speculation. And that, as according to Lyndon LaRouche, was doomed to collapse. Already he was talking about this in 1995 when he presented the first version of this typical collapse function. But then already in 2007, he said, this is going to happen now. So this was not unpredictable, because if you understand the principles of physical economics as opposed to what modern economics are, then you can actually see where a country or a nation or a region is going based on where they are investing. So in that sense, we had the financial markets were growing exponentially, and they completely left the real world. As you see in this diagram, this is already before 2007, where the financial instruments in the markets were hundreds of times larger than the gross domestic product of all nations in the world. So also, since as a result of that, we have seen a collapse of the activity of many nations, or the physical economic conditions of many economies, specifically the United States, who are screaming now about China, but what we see in the United States is a result of American policy, not Chinese policy. And we see the collapse of the American productive employment in manufacturing, for example, going all the way back. Of course, many companies outsource their production to China, but that was not China's fault. It was their own policy. But they also outsourced to other regions. So also we see the frustrated Americans and Europeans in the streets. They want to open up in the middle of the coronavirus because their living conditions have been collapsing. And we see in this diagram that the wages of the labor in the United States specifically, but also we can see this happening in other parts of the world, has been almost stagnating, while the profits of the companies were rising. The wages, the real wages of the labor force, has been in decline. So in response, which is very interesting, in response to the 2008 financial crisis, as I wrote in a recent article with a colleague of mine, we looked at the response of how the Western central banks reacted to the crisis and how China reacted to the crisis. They reacted in similar ways. The big four like the United States Federal Reserve or Central Bank, the Bank of England, the European Central Bank, and the Bank of Japan, they pumped in since 2008 about $22 trillion into the financial markets. None of that was used to lend money, issue credit for productive companies, for infrastructure, for healthcare, for education, for any of that. It was purely to save the financial and banking system. China did the same thing through their big four, the Import-Export Bank, the Construction Bank, the Development Bank, and the National Agricultural Bank, through the support of the People's Bank of China, the Chinese Central Bank, but they used it for a completely different purpose. As a result of the Western policy, we can see that the bubble started to grow again. This is a very fascinating chart about the comparison between Germany's gross domestic product, which about almost $3 trillion, and the whole Eurozone GDP was about 9.6. That was in 2019. compared to the assets of only one bank in Germany, the Deutsche Bank, it was about 5 times larger than that. And everybody was talking about Deutsche Bank as being the next shoe to drop in that crisis. So what these Western and Japan central banks were doing is just building a new bubble. But unfortunately, they did not stop, even with the signs of a new crisis. When the corona hit the international financial markets, they went back to the same policy. And here we see the reaction from the US Federal Reserve, from the European Central Bank, is to pump even more money. Up to now, it's about $6 to $7 trillion were pumped into the financial markets to prevent it from collapse. China is doing the same, but they're not doing it for the same purposes. What China was doing, and it's quite fascinating to look at that history, is that China used these financial resources to enhance its own physical economy. They seized the opportunity of the financial markets collapsing, but also their markets in Europe and the United States were going down. So China had to resort to the policy of finding out where to increase its own productivity, but focusing more and more on the development of the infrastructure, which is a very key matter. So the irony is the Chinese, although the plans to build a high-speed railway system, and we use this as just an example because there are many, many other areas where China invested in and became the world champion since 2008, is the high-speed railway is a good example because in August 2008, there was only one high-speed railway line, I think, from Tianjin to Beijing. And it was inaugurated in August 2008. It was the same time as several banks in the United States started to collapse. So you can see between 2008 and 2018, we have the development, building and development of 25,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, which is bigger than all the high-speed rail in the whole world. And this is where the difference is in dealing with the crisis. China, in this sense, became the world leader in construction because they focused on large-scale infrastructure projects. Also, we have to realize that we have to be grateful to China because most of the world economy became dependent on China. It was the engine of the world economy after the 2008 crisis when all the other exports of Germany and Sweden to China increased almost 7-8 times since 2008, the biggest increase in history. So we have to be grateful that China did not follow the Western central bank's policy by pumping money into the banks, but they used the credit to build infrastructure, industry, and so on. So that helped the world economy actually in the middle of the crisis. In addition, China did something else, which is coming up with the Belt and Road Initiative. And in that sense, the same Chinese banks, they issued about more than almost $1 trillion in credits and loans to projects outside China along the Belt and Road Initiative. So there's a reason why we have a map of the whole world, because it's a matter of principle. Now I'm not going to go through all the details, but you can read in our articles on that and previous presentations we have done on. But you can see a very clear distinction between where China is investing its financial resources and money and where we in the West here have been doing. Now I want to go to the second point, which is the question of economic principle. There is actually what we have in the typical of today's classical economics is the economy is about the allocation of resources. If you have limited resources, you have to find out where you allocate and divide these resources. That's not completely true if we look at the history of mankind. because the most important resource is in the creative individual ability to understand universal or physical principles in nature and use these discoveries in nature or inside their mind to turn them into what we call technologies and making tools out of them to improve our productivity, the living conditions, and the future prospects. Now, in the article I referenced, what we say, my colleague and I, is that true economic value lies not in money or in natural resources, but rather in the creative, productive powers of labor, and in increasing this power through scientific and technological advancements. All policies in society, including the issuance of money and credit, should be geared towards improving the productive powers of labor, which includes financing and building a platform of basic economic infrastructure that is transport, power generation, water management, healthcare, and education, including science driver programs such as nuclear technology and space exploration programs. That's where nations can increase their ability to both increase their living conditions, but also prevent crises. Now, I find fascinating, many people in the West or around the world, they just report about President Xi Jinping or the Communist Party of China, but very few people really study the ideas presented by President Xi Jinping or the people in leadership in China. And I find it quite fascinating to see the similarities between the way of thinking we are presenting here and also with President Xi Jinping. President Xi Jinping does not make these speeches to win elections. He's not like Western politicians. He doesn't have to worry about elections or anything. What he is worried about, how history will judge him. And to understand where China is going, you have to understand the architects who are building the pathway to that future. So President Xi Jinping, as you see in this quote, and I read most of his speeches in the last 4 to 6 years, and he is very focused on the question of innovation and saying that innovation, which I call creativity, is the primary source of development of a nation. It's not its money, it's not its natural resources, it's the human resources and how to develop the creativity, the innovation capability inside the individual and the society to go forward economically. So you can find these, so the idea that innovation or creativity happens in the mind of an individual who can discover a principle through his own mind in nature and turn that into useful technological and economic tools. And I use this image from ancient Egypt, which is a painting. This is the precursor of the hand drill. And you can see what kind of things we can do with tools, or what we call the machine tool principle, which is one of the key elements of a physical economy. This is the same thing, but it's now motorized. It's a watchmaker, I think maybe in Switzerland, who's using the same principle to create new tools. We have more advanced forms of the drilling ability, but these are lathes which produces the tools. These are tools that make tools for production, for construction, and so on and so forth. These are the most important tools, and creativity is a very important part of developing these tool-making machines, machine tool machines. Now they are advanced, they are computerized, and they also have become very, very large scale. We had our friends talking about the tunnel building. Using the same principle, you can build anything from a tiny watch to a space rocket. Now we have also the 3D printing capability where space rockets engines can be built with three-dimensional. This is an image of the drilling machine, which drilled the Gotthard tunnel in Switzerland, between Switzerland and Italy. It's a huge, huge project. One of the very few big projects built in Europe in recent years. So this is the principle. You go from an idea into a technology, into a machine, and then you improve the living conditions of a society. And that brings me to this idea of what the advancements you make in scientific and technological area, that increases your productivity. That's the only real measure of progress. That's the only real, should be the measure of productivity. And when nations invest in scientific and technological advances, their economy grows. And also when you invest in infrastructure, we can see from the history of the United States that greatest periods of economic development were the periods when the government took responsibility for building massive. We can see the highest rates of what we call the total factor productivity. That means the investments in science and technology breakthroughs and in infrastructure, that's what you call total factor productivity. It affects the productivity of your labor. And the greatest rates of increase were during the 1930s and 40s in the United States under President Franklin Roosevelt, but also we had in the 1960s when the Kennedy administration launched the space program, we had also an increase in the total factor productivity. Now, this brings me to a very ironical point, which I say that what China has been doing in the last 3 decades is very, very harmonious and similar to what the United States did. What China was doing in the 19th century and even in the 20th century was called the American system of political economy. It's something which is no longer exists today in the United States, and people have very little information about it. But that is the American system of political economy, which was the pioneer for that was Alexander Hamilton, who was the first finance minister, Treasury Secretary of the United States, and he's one of the founding fathers. He wrote the Federalist Papers. He also had papers on credit and manufacturing. And the idea of the American system is that the government is responsible for promoting the general welfare of the people, because the government has to take control over financial monetary policy to promote productive investments. As we saw in the canal building in the early 19th century, we have the transcontinental railway between East and West United States, which, by the way, Chinese workers played a big role in building. And that was right in the middle of the American Civil War. So the American system of political economy inspired people in Europe, like Bismarck. They used the same methods to industrialize Germany. Russia, under Count Sergei Witte, under the Tsar Alexander, also were inspired by the American system. They built the Trans-Siberian Railway, but the economists like Henrique, who was an advisor to President Abraham Lincoln, his writings and of Frederick List were very popular in Europe, even here in Sweden. So this was an inspiration for most nations to follow in the footsteps of the United States in promoting this kind of investment. The greatest, and I'm a fan of the greatest American president in my view is Franklin Roosevelt, who saved the United States from the Great Depression. He saved and worked with other nations like Russia, China, Europe to save the world from fascism and Nazism during World War II. But he would not have been able, and the United States would not have been able to do that if it were not for the policies pushed by Franklin Roosevelt since the early 1930s after the Great Depression, like the New Deal, but also the Tennessee Valley Authority, which turned the whole Tennessee River Valley into from the poorest area in the United States to one of the biggest growth areas in the world in less than 10 years. And people were going from all over the world to visit the Tennessee Valley Authority, which still today is a government-owned entity, utility. And people from all around the world were going to the United States to study the Tennessee Valley Authority and learn how the United States can help to build similar ones in all nations where they have rivers. Now, there was an interesting thing with Roosevelt too, is that he had an intention that after World War II, and this is something which he warned Churchill about, that after World War II, we are not willing to fight more wars to save the empires, the British Empire, the French Empire, the Belgian nations, especially in Africa, will be free, and in Asia, And we will use the American system economics to develop those nations. And in that sense, Roosevelt, you can read about his fights with Churchill in Roosevelt's son book, Elliot Roosevelt. He wrote a book called As He Saw It, where you can read about the funny fights between Roosevelt and Churchill about how the world should look like after World War II and what methods. Roosevelt had planned the post-war era reconstruction in what became the Bretton Woods Conference in July 1944. A lot of disinformation and lack of information about what was the intention behind the Bretton Woods Conference and Bretton Woods system was, because it was corrupted afterwards, because Roosevelt unfortunately died before the World War was over. And the imperialists, both in Britain and the United States, went back to the same old system. But they used the Bretton Woods as a way, and the IMF and International Monetary Fund and World Bank as the tools of geopolitics rather than tools of reconstruction. But it's very important to look at the history of that. And recently, I have seen studies about the Chinese role in the Bretton Woods. It was not only Britain and the United States in Bretton Woods, there were 44 nations. And China had a huge delegation in that conference, bringing ideas into the whole Bretton Woods structure. Now, one of the most fascinating things I've seen is that the Chinese came up with mechanisms for multilateral lending already much earlier than the Bretton Woods. And thanks mostly to Sun Yat-sen. He is a Chinese scientist, philosopher, Christian, Confucian thinker, but also the revolutionary and the first president of the Republic of China. He wrote a paper when World War I ended, and he called it the International Development of China. That was 1919. And his point was that we can use all the powers who were at war against each other. They can unite around an idea to industrialize China. And his study, The International Development of China, is available on internet for free, actually, on the Gutenberg.org. And his idea is that nations were fighting against each other. Now they become allies in development, especially development of China, because he said if we don't develop China, if we don't end the imperialism, we will have new and bigger wars. He warned against that. So he says, and that brings me actually, you can see his ideas for developing of China is very clearly what happened in China today, but also part of his plans was to extend that into South Asia, East Asia, and Central Asia, and build what we have now as the new Silk Road. But is important is the principles he was thinking about. And in this sense, he writes in the conclusion of his paper, he says, in this international development scheme, I venture to present a practical solution for the three great world questions, which are the international war, the commercial war, and the class war. And then he says in the same conclusion, in the next, he says, as it has been discovered by post-Darwin philosophers, that the primary force of human evolution is cooperation and not struggle as that of the animal world. So he says cooperation, not competition, is the true nature of man, and that's the source of evolution of society. And this is a very, very important point. What we heard today is a reflection of that. And I think that this should be the spirit, this should be the idea of bringing people from all cultures, all political systems around these universal principles. As I said in the beginning, people should go back and study their own nation's history, the best part of their own nation's history, to learn the lessons of how to deal with China, how to deal with Russia, how to deal with other nations. And if we realize what is best in our culture, we will be able to understand the other cultures much, much clearer. And I think we can discuss this in the future, there is a necessity for a new Bretton Woods system where the big powers, all the nations can get together and define what is the new normal we need to have after the corona pandemic. So I stop here and I thank you very much for your attention.
You're going to stop sharing there?
Yes.
Thank you for that inspiring discussion. Very important ideas and information